The Spirit Level: Why Greater Equality Makes Societies Stronger. By Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett. Narrated by Clive Chafer. Copyright 2009 by Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett. Forward copyright 2010 by Robert B. Reich. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with Bloomsbury, USA, and was produced in the year 2011 by Tantor Media Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. This audiobook is packaged with bonus material, which has been included on each audio and MP3 CD. If you downloaded this audiobook in a digital format, please refer to www.tantor.com, keyword Spirit Level, and click on PDF Extra to access these images. Forward. Robert B. Reich, Professor of Public Policy, University of California, former U.S. Secretary of Labor. Most American families are worse off today than they were 3 decades ago. The Great Recession of 2008 to 2009 destroyed the value of their homes, undermined their savings, and too often left them without jobs. But even before the Great Recession began, most Americans had gained little from the economic expansion that began almost 3 decades before. Today, the Great Recession notwithstanding, the U.S. economy is far larger than it was in 1980. But where has all the wealth gone? Mostly to the very top. The latest data shows that by 2007, America's top 1% of earners received 23% of the nation's total income, almost triple their 8% share in 1980. This rapid trend toward inequality in America marks a significant reversal of the move toward income equality that began in the early part of the 20th century and culminated during the middle decades of the century. Yet inequality has not loomed large as a political issue. Even Barack Obama's modest proposal to return income tax rates to where they stood in the 1990s prompted his 2008 Republican opponents to call him a socialist who wanted to spread the wealth. Once president, Obama's even more modest proposal to limit the income tax deductions of the wealthy in order to pay for health care for all met fierce resistance from a democratically controlled Congress. If politicians have failed to grapple with the issue of inequality, few scholars have done better. Philosophers have had little to say on the subject. Some who would tax the rich to help the poor frame their arguments as utilitarian. Taking $100 from a rich person and giving it to a poor person would diminish the rich person's happiness only slightly, they argue, but greatly increase the happiness of the poor person. Others ground their arguments in terms of hypothetical consent. John Rawls defends redistribution on the grounds that most people would be in favor of it if they had no idea what their income would otherwise be. Nor have economists, whom we might expect to focus attention on such a dramatic trend, expressed much concern about widening inequality. For the most part, economists concern themselves with efficiency and growth. In fact, some of them argue that wide inequality is a necessary if not inevitable consequence of a growing economy. A few worry that it cuts off opportunities among the children of the poor for productive lives, but whether to distribute wealth more equally, or what might be gained from doing so, is a topic all but ignored by today's economic researchers. It has taken 2 experts from the field of public health to deliver a major study of the effects of inequality on society. Though Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett are British, their research explores the United States in depth, and their work is an important contribution to the debate our country needs. The Spirit Level looks at the negative social effects of wide inequality, among them more physical and mental illness not only among those at the lower ranks, but even those at the top of the scale. The authors find, not surprisingly, that where there are great disparities in wealth, there are heightened levels of social distrust. They argue convincingly that wide inequality is bad for a society, and that more equal societies tend to do better on many measures of social health and wealth. But if wide inequality is socially dysfunctional, then why are certain countries, such as the United States, becoming so unequal? largely because of the increasing gains to be had by being just a bit better than other competitors in a system becoming ever more competitive. Consider executive pay. During the 1950s and 60s, CEOs of major American companies took home about 25 to 30 times the wages of the typical worker. After the 1970s, the two pay scales diverged. In 1980, the big company CEO took home roughly 40 times. By 1990, it was 100 times. By 2007, just before the Great Recession, CEO pay packages had ballooned to about 350 times what the typical worker earned. Recent supports suggest that the upward trajectory of executive pay, temporarily stopped by the economic meltdown, is on the verge of continuing. To make the comparison especially vivid, in 1968 the CEO of General Motors, then the largest company in the United States, took home around 66 times the pay and benefits of the typical GM worker at the time. In 2005, the CEO of Walmart, by then the largest U.S. company, took home 900 times the pay and benefits of the typical Walmart worker. What explains this trajectory? Have top executives become greedier? Have corporate boards grown less responsible? Are CEOs more crooked? Are investors more docile? Is Wall Street more tractable? There's no evidence to support any of these theories. Here's a simpler explanation. 40 years ago, everyone's pay in a big company, even pay at the top, was affected by bargains struck among big business, big labor, and indirectly government. Big companies and their unions directly negotiated pay scales for hourly workers, while white-collar workers understood that their pay grades were indirectly affected. Large corporations resembled civil service bureaucracies. Top executives in these huge companies had to maintain the goodwill of organized labor. They also had to maintain good relationships with public officials in order to be free to set wages and prices, to obtain regulatory permissions on fares, rates, or licenses, and to continue to secure government contracts. It would have been unseemly of them to draw very high salaries. Since then, competition has intensified. With ever greater ease, rival companies can get access to similar low-cost suppliers from all over the world. They can streamline their operations with the same information technology their competitors use. They can cut their labor force and substitute similar software culled from many of the same vendors. They can just as readily outsource hourly jobs abroad. They can get capital for new investment on much the same terms. They can gain access to distribution channels that are no less efficient, some of them even identical, Walmart or other big-box retailers. They can attract shareholders by showing even slightly better performance or the promise of it. The dilemma facing so many companies is therefore how to beat rivals. Even a small advantage can make a huge difference to the bottom line. In economic terms, CEOs have become less like top bureaucrats and more like Hollywood celebrities or star athletes who take a share of the house. Hollywood's most popular celebrities now pull in around 15% of whatever the studios take in at the box office, and athletes are also getting a growing portion of sales. As the New Yorker's James Surowiecki has reminded us, Mickey Mantle earned $60,000 in 1957. Carlos Beltran made $15 million in 2005. Even adjusting for inflation, Beltran got 40 times as much as Mantle. Clark Gable earned $100,000 a picture in the 1940s, which translates into roughly $800,000 today. Tom Hanks, by contrast, makes closer to $20 million per film. Movie studios and baseball teams find it profitable to pay these breathtaking sums because they're still relatively small compared to the money these stars bring in and the profits they generate. Today's big companies are paying their CEOs mammoth sums for much the same reason. In the world of finance, the numbers are yet greater. Top investment bankers and traders take home even more than CEOs or most Hollywood stars. For the managers of 26 major hedge funds, the average take-home pay in 2005 was $363 million, a 45% increase over their average earnings the year before. The Wall Street meltdown took its toll on some of these hedge funds and their managers, but by the end of 2009, many were back. This economic explanation for these startling levels of pay does not justify them socially or morally. It only means that in our roles as consumers and investors, we implicitly think CEOs, star athletes, and Hollywood celebrities are worth it. As citizens, though, most of us disapprove. Polls continue to show that a great majority of Americans believe CEOs are overpaid and that inequality of income and wealth is a large problem. In short, our nation's wealth is becoming even more concentrated at the top. It has become the financial equivalent of hydrodynamics. Large streams of income create even larger pools of wealth. The family of Walmart founder Sam Walton has a combined fortune estimated to be about $90 billion. In 2005, Bill Gates was worth $46 billion, Warren Buffett $44 billion. By contrast, the combined wealth of the bottom 40% of the United States population that year, some 120 million people, was estimated to be around $95 billion. Here again, the Great Recession of 2008 to 2009 took a toll. Some of these billionaires' fortunes were whittled down by 20 to 40%, but even then they remained immense. As citizens, we may feel that inequality on this scale cannot possibly be good for us, and Wilkinson and Pickett supply the evidence that confirms our gut sense of unease. Such inequality undermines the trust, solidarity, and mutuality on which responsibilities of citizenship depend. It creates a new aristocracy whose privileges perpetuate themselves over generations. One of the striking findings in these pages is that America now has less social mobility than many poorer countries, and it breeds cynicism among the rest of us. This is not to say that the super-rich are at fault. By and large, the market is generating these outlandish results. But the market is a creation of public policies, and public policies, as the authors make clear, can reorganize the market to reverse these trends. The spirit level shows why the effort to do so is a vital one for the health of our society. Berkeley, California, July 2009. Preface. People usually exaggerate the importance of their own work, and we worry about claiming too much. But this book is not just another set of nostrums and prejudices about how to put the world to rights. The work we describe here comes out of a very long period of research, over 50 person-years between us, devoted initially to trying to understand the causes of the big differences in life expectancy, the health inequalities, between people at different levels in the social hierarchy in modern societies. The focal problem initially was to understand why health gets worse at every step down the social ladder, so that the poor are less healthy than those in the middle, who in turn are less healthy than those further up. Like others who work on the social determinants of health, our training in epidemiology means that our methods are those used to trace the causes of diseases in populations, trying to find out why one group of people gets a particular disease while another group doesn't, or to explain why some disease is becoming more common. The same methods can, however, also be used to understand the causes of other kinds of problems, not just health. Just as the term evidence-based medicine is used to describe current efforts to ensure that medical treatment is based on the best scientific evidence of what works and what does not, we thought of calling this book evidence-based politics. The research which underpins what we describe comes from a great many research teams in different universities and research organizations. Replicable methods have been used to study observable and objective outcomes, and peer-reviewed research reports have been published in academic scientific journals. This does not mean that there is no guesswork. Results always have to be interpreted, but there are usually good reasons for favoring one interpretation over another. Initial theories and expectations are often called into question by later research findings which make it necessary to think again. We would like to take you on the journey we have traveled, signposted by crucial bits of evidence and leaving out only the various cul-de-sacs and wrong turnings that wasted so much time, to arrive at a better understanding of how we believe it is possible to improve the quality of life for everyone in modern societies. We shall set out the evidence and our reasons for interpreting it the way we do, so that you can judge for yourself. At an intuitive level, people have always recognized that inequality is socially corrosive, but there seemed little reason to think that levels of inequality in developed societies differed enough to expect any measurable effects. The reasons which first led one of us to look for effects seem now largely irrelevant to the striking picture which has emerged. Many discoveries owe as much to luck as judgment. The reason why the picture we present has not been put together until now is probably that much of the data has only become available in recent years. With internationally comparable information not only on incomes and income distribution, but also on different health and social problems, it could only have been a matter of time before someone came up with findings like ours. The emerging data have allowed us and other researchers to analyze how societies differ, to discover how one factor is related to another, and to test theories more rigorously. It is easy to imagine that discoveries are more rapidly accepted in the natural than in the social sciences, as if physical theories are somehow less controversial than theories about the social world. But the history of the natural sciences is littered with painful personal disputes, which started off as theoretical disagreements, but often lasted for the rest of people's lives. Controversies in the natural sciences are usually confined to the experts. Most people do not have strong views on rival theories in particle physics, but they do have views on how society works. Social theories are partly theories about ourselves. Indeed, they might almost be regarded as part of our self-awareness or self-consciousness of societies. While natural scientists do not have to convince individual cells or atoms to accept their theories, social theorists are up against a plethora of individual views and powerful vested interests. In 1847, Ignaz Semmelweis discovered that if doctors washed their hands before attending women in childbirth, it dramatically reduced deaths from puerperal fever. But before his work could have much benefit, he had to persuade people, principally his medical colleagues, to change their behavior. His real battle was not his initial discovery, but what followed from it. His views were ridiculed, and he was driven eventually to insanity and suicide. Much of the medical profession did not take his work seriously until Louis Pasteur and Joseph Lister had developed the germ theory of disease, which explained why hygiene was important. We live in a pessimistic period. As well as being worried by the likely consequences of global warming, it is easy to feel that many societies are, despite their material success, increasingly burdened by their social failings. If correct, the theory and evidence set out in this book tells us how to make substantial improvements in the quality of life for the vast majority of the population. Yet unless it is possible to change the way most people see the societies they live in, the theory will be stillborn. Public opinion will only support the necessary political changes if something like the perspective we outline in this book permeates the public mind. We have therefore set up a not-for-profit trust to try to make the kind of evidence set out in the following audiobook better known. Lacking funds and expertise, it is, at the time of writing, scarcely more than a website, www.equalitytrust.org.uk. But we hope at least to suggest that there is a way out of the woods for us all. Note on graphs. Facts from figures. How to look at the graphs in this book. Most of the graphs that we use in this book are charts linking income equality to different health and social problems. They show relationships either 1. internationally, comparing rich countries, or 2. in the USA, comparing different states. In all of these graphs we put income equality along the horizontal line at the bottom, the x-axis, so societies with low levels of inequality are to the left, and societies with high levels of inequality are towards the right of the graph. The different health and social outcomes are shown on the vertical line, the y-axis, on the left side of the graph. On most of the graphs there are two features. First, there is a scatter of points, either of rich countries or of U.S. states, so that listeners can see exactly how each society compares to others. Second, there is a line called a regression line, which shows the best fit relationship between income inequality and the outcome on that graph. This line is not chosen by us, but is calculated by statistical software to give the line which best fits the trend through the data points. It is also possible to calculate how unlikely it is that the pattern we see could result from chance alone. We have only included a best fit line through the points if the relationship would be very unlikely to occur by chance. When a graph has no best fit line, it means that there is no evidence of a relationship. If the line slopes steeply upwards from left to right, it shows that the health or social outcome becomes more common in more unequal societies. This pattern tends to occur with problems that we think of as bad, such as violence. If the line slopes steeply downwards from left to right, it shows that the health or social outcome is much less common in more unequal societies. We see this pattern for things that we think of as good, such as trust. A wider scatter of points on the graph means that there are other important influences on the outcome. It may not mean that inequality is not a powerful influence, simply that other factors matter as well. A narrow scattering of points means that there is a very close relationship between inequality and the outcome, and that inequality is an excellent predictor of the outcome. Further details of our methods can be found at www.equalitytrust.org.uk. Part 1. Material Success, Social Failure. 1. The End of an Era. Quote, I care for riches to make gifts to friends, or lead a sick man back to health with ease and plenty. Else small aid is wealth for daily gladness. Once a man be done with hunger, rich and poor are all as one. Unquote. Euripides, Electra. It is a remarkable paradox that at the pinnacle of human material and technical achievement we find ourselves anxiety-ridden, prone to depression, worried about how others see us, unsure of our friendships, driven to consume, and with little or no community life. Lacking the relaxed social contact and emotional satisfaction we all need, we seek comfort in overeating, obsessive shopping and spending, or become prey to excessive alcohol, psychoactive medicines, and illegal drugs. How is it that we have created so much mental and emotional suffering, despite levels of wealth and comfort unprecedented in human history? Often what we feel is missing is little more than time enjoying the company of friends, yet even that can seem beyond us. We talk as if our lives were a constant battle for psychological survival, struggling against stress and emotional exhaustion, but the truth is that the luxury and extravagance of our lives is so great that it threatens the planet. Research from the Harvard Institute for Public Innovation, commissioned by the Merck Family Foundation in the USA, shows that people feel that materialism somehow comes between them and the satisfaction of their social needs. A report entitled Yearning for Balance, based on a nationwide survey of Americans, concluded that they were, quote, deeply ambivalent about wealth and material gain, unquote. A large majority of people wanted society to, quote, move away from greed and excess toward a way of life more centered on values, community, and family, unquote. But they also felt that these priorities were not shared by most of their fellow Americans, who they believed had become, quote, increasingly atomized, selfish, and irresponsible, unquote. As a result, they often felt isolated. However, the report says that when brought together in focus groups to discuss these issues, people were, quote, surprised and excited to find that others shared their views, unquote. Rather than uniting us with others in a common cause, the unease we feel about the loss of social values and the way we are drawn into the pursuit of material gain is often experienced as if it were a purely private ambivalence which cuts us off from others. Mainstream politics no longer taps into these issues and has abandoned the attempt to provide a shared vision capable of inspiring us to create a better society. As voters, we have lost sight of any collective belief that society could be different. Instead of a better society, the only thing almost everyone strives for is to better their own position as individuals within the existing society. The contrast between the material success and social failure of many rich countries is an important signpost. It suggests that, if we are to gain further improvements in the real quality of life, we need to shift attention from material standards and economic growth to ways of improving the psychological and social well-being of whole societies. However, as soon as anything psychological is mentioned, discussion tends to focus almost exclusively on individual remedies and treatments. Political thinking seems to run into the sand. It is now possible to piece together a new, compelling and coherent picture of how we can release societies from the grip of so much dysfunctional behavior. A proper understanding of what is going on could transform politics and the quality of life for all of us. It would change our experience of the world around us, change what we vote for, and change what we demand from our politicians. In this book we show that the quality of social relations in a society is built on material foundations. The scale of income differences has a powerful effect on how we relate to each other. Rather than blaming parents, religion, values, education, or the penal system, we will show that the scale of inequality provides a powerful policy lever on the psychological well-being of all of us. Just as it once took studies of weight gain in babies to show that interacting with a loving caregiver is crucial to child development, so it has taken studies of death rates and of income distribution to show the social needs of adults and to demonstrate how societies can meet them. Long before the financial crisis which gathered pace in the later part of 2008, British politicians commenting on the decline of community or the rise of various forms of antisocial behaviour would sometimes refer to our broken society. The financial collapse shifted attention to the broken economy, and while the broken society was sometimes blamed on the behavior of the poor, the broken economy was widely attributed to the rich. Stimulated by the prospects of ever bigger salaries and bonuses, those in charge of some of the most trusted financial institutions threw caution to the wind and built houses of cards which could stand only within the protection of a thin speculative bubble. But the truth is that both the broken society and the broken economy resulted from the growth of inequality. Where the evidence leads. We shall start by outlining the evidence which shows that we have got close to the end of what economic growth can do for us. For thousands of years the best way of improving the quality of human life was to raise material living standards. When the wolf was never far from the door, good times were simply times of plenty. But for the vast majority of people in affluent countries, the difficulties of life are no longer about filling our stomachs, having clean water, and keeping warm. Most of us now wish we could eat less rather than more, and for the first time in history the poor are, on average, fatter than the rich. Economic growth, for so long the great engine of progress, has in the rich countries largely finished its work. Not only have measures of well-being and happiness ceased to rise with economic growth, but as affluent societies have grown richer, there have been long-term rises in rates of anxiety, depression, and numerous other social problems. The populations of rich countries have got to the end of a long historical journey. The course of the journey we have made can be seen in Figure 1.1. It shows the trends in life expectancy in relation to gross national income per head in countries at various stages of economic development. Among poorer countries, life expectancy increases rapidly during the early stages of economic development, but then, starting among the middle-income countries, the rate of improvement slows down. As living standards rise and countries get richer and richer, the relationship between economic growth and life expectancy weakens. Eventually it disappears entirely, and the rising curve in Figure 1.1 becomes horizontal, showing that for rich countries to get richer adds nothing further to their life expectancy. That has already happened in the richest 30 or so countries nearest the top right-hand corner of Figure 1.1. The reason why the curve in Figure 1.1 levels out is not because we have reached the limits of life expectancy. Even the richest countries go on enjoying substantial improvement.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?